All right, this is a Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I'm your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined by my co-host Brian Solomon. How's it going?
Going well. Happy to be here as always.
Yes, just the two of us today, a little
Yep.
earlier than usual. So if we both look a little sleepier than usual,
I
forgive
slept
us.
in this shirt that I'm wearing right now, just so you know.
Yeah, I slept in the one underneath there.
Yeah.
So yes, and I got this in Vegas, which we're going to be talking about. WrestleMania,
Oh,
one
nice.
topic. We're going to be discussing WrestleMania 41, our thoughts, kind of a review, and also I guess talk a bit about the fallout. We'll get into it in a second. Before I do that, let me get the plug out of the way. Latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated available now. Go over to pwi-online.com and get it. You're all over this, Brian. You've got the feature story on the cover about the WWE era, which I wasn't sure what it was until we talked last week. And as you explained, it's been WWE longer now than it's been WWF, and you've got kind of a catch-all, a story that looks back on what is now
23 years.
23.
23
Okay.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
June is actually when the milestone is passed. It'll be June.
so does it tie or does it at June?
At June, it passes. Yes.
Yes, and again, you look back on 23 years, and there's some discussion of WrestleMania there, and all the different eras that have come and gone over the last 23 years. So a very extensive feature, a lot of fun. You've got a couple columns in here, and there is a lot more. I know Kevin's got something about some of the bloody action we've seen in AEW. Candace has got something about Becca, independent superstar, and a lot more. Head over to pwi-online.com, subscribe. You could get bundles where you get both the digital edition and the print edition, big discount over the cover price. You could get back issues and a lot more. So, as we talked about with Kevin last week, we're going to have a WrestleMania coverage, which I'm sure we're starting to compile for the next issue. Supercards is back. That's an old staple of PWI dating back many decades. So we're going to have lots of coverage of WrestleMania and a lot more. pwi-online.com. All right, let's talk WrestleMania. Brian, first, how did you watch it? I know it was on Easter. I know this was an issue for you. So did you end up watching night one live and night two not live?
So what wound up happening is actually I was able to see almost all of it because on the night before, Saturday night was fine. I actually had people over. I usually have a kind of a party at the house. That's my tradition. And that was easy. Now on Easter itself, I sort of, it was a crazy day. It was a busy day, a lot of family and stuff. The thing was though, I would have to say by about 7:30, the house was cleared out, everything had settled down, and I was actually able to sit down and watch it because there wasn't anything going on. The whole holiday was over. The only difference was that I couldn't have the big party that I usually like to have. So it was a very lonely WrestleMania night. I'm not used to just sitting there and watching it by myself, like a TV show. Like it's usually an event at my house. So that was the only thing I missed out on. Was it was just kind of a quiet, lonely WrestleMania night too.
Yeah, I mean, when I would watch WrestleMania, it would always be a party too. Even when it's like a WWE PLE, I like to.
I have people over almost every time. Yeah, for
yeah,
these.
yeah, I
things.
like that
still
way
do.
too. Yeah, it's that whole kind of communal sort of experience. My experience was in the building. We went to Vegas last Wednesday, my 17th WrestleMania, and we first time I went to the host city without tickets, and we were online picking up the rental car when we finally pulled the trigger on Ticketmaster. They opened up some more seats in the house. But again, we've talked about it, but ticket wise this year, it's just insane. I've heard accounts from people who held out even more than I did. And on the day of the show, got some really good deals, but obviously like a huge risk if you're flying into a city to go there without a deal. So I was never going to push it that much. So I got to Wednesday and finally pulled the trigger.
Well, I saw people online talking about how, the people that were in the real like crazy nosebleed seats saying that they were so far away and the lighting and everything is so bad. And, with all those floodlights and things that people were just streaming it on their phones on Peacock. And I'm like, you paid all that money. I mean, what in the world? You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know where they were sitting. Honestly, you couldn't have much worse seats than I had. I was behind the stage essentially. I couldn't see the stage. But I've never been like bougie about these things. I just want to be in the building.
Yeah.
I know I could see it better at home or even on my phone, but it is not the experience of being surrounded by 60,000 fans,
Yeah.
and it's a blast. And honestly, for terrible seats, they were good seats. I could sit, plenty of screens to watch the action, and unless you're really close, you're going to be watching the screens anyway for the most part.
Right. The big
Yeah,
screens. I've
I
been to
wasn't blinded by any lights or anything like that.
I've been to 3 Manias, and 2 of them were when I worked for WWE. One of them was way, way back when it was very affordable to get in. So I haven't been to any of the modern WrestleManias. I certainly haven't paid for tickets in 30 years. So I don't know. That would probably be a rude awakening for me. I came really close to going when they were in Philly last year, but it just didn't line up. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, I
Maybe,
don't know, if this year was going to be kind of an anomaly. I don't know if the fact that they didn't sell out until kind of the last minute maybe has them back off for a while, or do they just, at the end look at the metrics? We sold the place out, charging ridiculous amounts of money. Let's do it again, or let's raise. And I think it's probably the latter. I also don't know if the Vegas setting maybe had an impact on ticket prices and New Orleans next year. Do they dial things back a bit? I hope they do. I mean, I'll say this much: these were the worst seats, maybe second worst I've ever had to WrestleMania, and by far the most I ever paid for a
And
WrestleMania.
don't you think it's gotten so tiresome now when they, after every one of these shows now, they talk about how it's the highest gate of all time, it's the greatest, the most lucrative money-making event ever. It's sort of like, well, this is meaningless because yeah, well, of course it is. You jacked up all the
Yeah.
prices. What kind I don't really see that as much of an accomplishment. Like, yeah, they could have done that 20 years ago if they felt like jacking the prices up that
Well,
high. I
no,
mean,
I don't know that they could. I mean, because I think what they're saying is we can keep on jacking up these prices and people still come. So demand is that high. I mean, right? It is like it's capitalism, right? I mean, it is the laws of supply and demand, and at some point a
yeah,
fan makes the decision at this price, it's not worth it to me. And they didn't make that decision, right? I mean,
right.
the demand for the product is still so high that they could charge these exorbitant prices, and people still come. So, do they cool off? They will. I mean, I'm not. This is almost like objectively case. At some point, business will not be
Of
this
course.
good. I'm not saying it's a year. It might be 10 years. It might be 15 years. But the things are cyclical. They're going to. Cody will not be wrestling at some point, and John Cena, and it might be a while before they find their next attraction, and there
Well,
will be a down period.
my biggest fear though about what's different now, and we talked about this, my biggest fear about a cooling off period is they're not an independent company anymore. They're not owned by this one driven individual who's going to see all these down periods through and get back up on top. They're owned by a corporate entity. They're owned. This is like, Turner owning WCW. So would there come a time when Endeavor just says, we're gonna just close this thing down. It's not worth it. It's losing money. We'll keep selling T-shirts and hats and stuff, but we're not doing this anymore. Like, you know what I mean? That I think that's a possibility one day. They may just kind of, put it in mothballs like Disney did to the Muppets,
Yeah, one day, sure. I mean, it'd have to be a kind of plummeting that we haven't seen. I mean, you can
hmm
certainly scale down, and we're looking way into the future. But I mean, it's conceivable that we're back in arenas at some point for WrestleMania. You're seeing it kind of in real time in AEW, and I know
Yeah.
that they obviously don't have as long a history, but you see now Dynamite in smaller and smaller buildings, and that is the reality of running a business. Is that, like, right? If
Yeah.
the demand isn't there, you've got to kind of scale things down.
Combining
WWE is
tapings
scaled up
too.
as much as it's ever been because the demand has never been higher.
Right. And AEW also, even very recently, they've started combining tapings. Like I just read yesterday, they had coming up a Dynamite and a Collision, and then they just turned it into a Dynamite / Collision taping and that kind of thing. So and they moved. There was a Ring of Honor
Right.
pay-per-view, which they
Supposed to be in
just
Atlantic
moved
City. Yeah.
to a later date in a more kind of like out of the way location. Yeah.
Yeah. But Vegas for a Mania certainly caters to that kind of really kind of aggressive business approach of trying to fleece everyone out of their money. So again, I don't know if it's a 1 year kind of anomaly, or I don't doubt that they'll be back in Vegas before long. I'd be surprised if they make it 5 years before they return to
Well,
Vegas.
they're in New Orleans again last year,
Yeah,
and weren't they just there like what 2 years ago?
2018. No,
Oh,
2018.
that. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
man. Okay,
And
20.
before that 2014. So yeah, I
Right.
mean they do stick to these cities that they like. And looking at the metrics, and Triple H talked about it in the scrum, there's so many things to do, and venues. So that was really new this year, on top of 2 nights of Mania, SmackDown, Raw, NXT Stand and Deliver. They split the Hall of Fame into a separate event. They did a roast. They did the Undertaker's live show. They did after parties every night. They had the World, which is like the fan experience.
The first
Uh,
thing I thought about when I heard about the roast, which happened right after night 2, from working for this company, my initial response was, "Oh man, what about the WrestleMania after party? That's the most fun part of the whole thing." Instead, everybody's got to go over to this roast. It's that they can't even relax and
I
have
gotta
their
say,
party.
so apparently, because I was looking for footage of it yesterday, and apparently it's kept very secret. They even told
Mhm.
attendees, I think phones weren't allowed in. Still, some stuff leaked in, and if you know how roasts work, they get a very raunchy, and
Yes,
they work very blue. I think this is a terrible idea. I
me
mean,
too.
like, I don't know why they would. First of all, like, marrying yourself to Tony Hinchcliffe, and whatever you think about him, the guy is surrounded by controversy coming off of his remarks at that Trump rally months ago. So why would you willingly, whatever, wherever you are politically, just looking at it from a business perspective, there's just no need for this. I heard some of the comments that leaked out from Heyman, and it's filthy stuff. And the thing about roast
But
is,
in fairness, it's no different than the stuff you hear at uncensored roasts of any
oh,
other
it's
kind.
probably a little more timid, than
Yeah, and for the record, I do think it's a bad, stupid idea,
yeah.
but
But they're not in the comedy business. I don't know why they're doing
right.
it. Yeah,
But people losing their minds over, the offensiveness of this or that. It's like that's what a roast is, but that's
right.
also why they shouldn't have done it.
Exactly. Yeah. A company that has got Chris Benoit in their history, and all the allegations with Janelle Grant. Why would you put yourself in an environment where people could openly, like, make jokes about? And I don't know that they did or didn't, but the possibility exists
Well,
when you're doing something like this.
Nia Jax also, I mean, Heyman's got a lot of headlines for what he did and what he was saying, which to me is just typical roast stuff. I mean, it's just people breaking each other's chops is what
Yeah.
it is. But did you see the Nia Jax stuff? I mean,
No.
her stuff, you should look it up. It seemed like people were saying this is just somebody airing their actual real life grievances more than making jokes. Like, she was really very critically talking about Cody Rhodes, talking
Really.
about Charlotte Flair, all these people in like a very, it was beyond roast stuff. It was like,
Really.
this is my chance to really say how I feel, whether it's funny or not. Whereas with Heyman stuff, yeah, it's offensive, but
Yeah.
it's ballsy, breaking chops kind of roast talk. And you know what I mean? It's like it's just what happens at a roast. But the Nia Jax stuff, you should look it up. It was very just I don't know, unprofessional,
Yeah.
honestly,
Sounds
unprofessional.
like Karrion Cross got to her. Have you seen Karrion Cross stuff? Have you seen the
Um,
Karrion Cross stuff that
oh
he
yeah,
did?
the promo that he did, yeah, which I mean, extremely edgy stuff, but clearly to me at least part of the angle of him with AJ Styles. I mean, otherwise, why would he be talking about all that stuff, the AJ Styles stuff, which is a work, like it's real? I mean, that
I
that
think
was.
I did not
You
have my
think
bingo
you think
card.
he was shooting?
Well, I was gonna say I don't have my bingo card starting this conversation with Karrion Kross.
Sorry.
It's fine. I think he is making a calculated decision to somewhat go into business for himself. I don't doubt that somebody over the weekend said you got to take that shot, and so he thinks, this will go viral, and to some extent he's right. If he didn't have something of a green light, that stuff could get you over. That stuff could also get you fired, and make you untouchable, right? Like nobody's gonna work with you. So you got to be careful. And then the other part of that is like you're carrying. Look, all due respect, the guy. Yeah, this is always my setup to trashing someone, but like it's not like all the fans are clamoring for Karrion Kross to get his long overdue push. I feel for what the guy said about like the frustrations and missing all these funerals and all that stuff. I get it. That's the I've got a cousin who's just getting into the wrestling business now, and I see him. I follow him on social media, just grinding it out on the weekends. That's what this is. Yeah. Right. I get that he's not a young man anymore. And at some point, you got to make the calculated decision whether I want to keep doing this or not. If my my hopes aren't coming true, but then you never know. I mean, like that we're kind of all over the place. But you look at like a Jey Uso, who probably was in the business longer, I would think, than Karrion Kross, as kind of like a middling tag team act, and is the world champion.
Right.
So you just never know. I mean, you do have to bet on yourself. And if you think you're that good and you've got the tools, you got to stick it out. I mean, if this is him doing that, betting on himself, take your shot, I guess.
For the record, I think that Karrion Kross, even though, no, I mean, I get no one's clamoring for him, but that's the thing with wrestling. It's like sometimes people don't even realize what they want or what to clamor for until you present it to them. I think he's a great example of somebody who, if they got behind him in the right way, he could be very big and very successful. I think he's really good. He's talented. He's got a great look. He's a great promo. He's just Triple H, I think, supposedly likes him a lot. I mean, he really probably over pushed him in NXT in the beginning. Yeah. And I think he's somebody that if they really got behind him in the right way, it could work. But for some reason, they really never have. So,
Yeah, I don't think he's I think he's fine. I've never been all that impressed by anything he's done. He's got some size. He's got an okay look. I don't think anything stands out that much. And when I've seen him pursue things that clearly he thinks, should work, I'm just not impressed by them, whether it's the entrance with Scarlett or even this kind of like meta sort of a promo. I don't know. I've never been blown away by the guy. All right, let's talk a little WrestleMania results. And again, I'm glad it's in some ways it's just you and me, so I can blather on some. We talked last week a little bit about how a WrestleMania is remembered has a lot to do with expectations, right? And when on paper a show looks like can't miss, and this is WrestleMania 40 last year, and you just meet those expectations, you got a terrific show, right? And WrestleMania 40 really was kind of paint by numbers. Everything kind of went the way people expected it to go, and because of that, it was a great show. Then you have some shows where it is can miss, and you look at the card. I think that was this card, and the thought is, well, for this to be really special and a great WrestleMania, it's got to exceed expectations by a lot. I don't think this did.
No.
I think it was around expectations, which is to say it was like an okay, it was kind of a B WrestleMania. At the end of the day, I think this is a case with all combat sports. It is about the main event. You see this in WCW in their heyday where they had these loaded undercards and cruiserweight matches. And then they would crap the bed with two old guys kind of dogging it in the main event. And that's what you remember. And it's why WWE is remembered so well in the 90s, because they had these fantastic main events and nobody remembers the terrible undercards. At the end, the 2 nights, 2 main events, there was really one main event, and then it was the closing match on the second night. And not to exaggerate, I mean, it's not that it stunk up the joint, but it was a disappointment. It was a letdown of a main event. I think the entire show was helped by night one, which I think was a little better than I expected. There wasn't anything bad on night one. Everything maybe was on like the high side of expectations. And the main event of night one was fantastic. Maybe the best WWE match of the year so far. Kept it going into the opening match of night two. Another terrific. The irony is, a lot of fretting going on, including by me about these needless triple threats, and the triple threat matches were the best thing about the weekend, both of them.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the second half of night two, things started to go off course, and never really recovered. As for the main event, I don't think there was disappointment in John Cena winning. I think most people thought John Cena was going to win. I think the execution wasn't great. It sort of moved on paper. If you wrote it all down, it had the makings. It checked all the boxes of a great, WWE a main event, and they did all the things that you do in a great main event. It kind of was at like 3/4 speed, because of John Cena and the reality that he's 48 years old. I think he turned today's his 48th birthday.
I know he was born in 77. So
yeah. And I looked it up because I was thinking is like, how old is he relative to how old Hogan was when he wrestled The Rock at WrestleMania 18? And as of today, they're the same age.
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a big Cody fan, but we also can't get around the fact that he is 40 this year, or will turn 40 this year. He's not quite as young as people think.
Yeah.
He's very youthful, but he is also 40.
Yeah, but he looked good. I mean,
he did look great.
Aesthetically, that's the best I've ever seen Cody look. When he came out, I was like, wow, this guy really got himself in great shape for Mania. And I don't necessarily like the notion of somebody carrying somebody else, but I do think Cody had to shoulder a lot of the real athleticism and physicality of it. And as far as expectations go, whether they advertise it or not, I think there was an expectation and a fine one, a reasonable one, that The Rock was going to be involved. And so I think there was a lot of like, wait, they were selling T-shirts. I saw some of them get on social media, but we were in the Superstore inside the building before the show, and there were the shirts. Finally, The Rock has returned to Las Vegas. And I remember looking at my wife and thinking like, well, there's a spoiler and just nothing, Well,
not to be one of those people that has to book everything myself, but I was really assuming that you were going to get this year what they didn't do last year, which The Rock was going to try to interfere, and then Stone Cold would come out and counteract him. And as soon as I saw Stone Cold come out on that ATV and almost kill somebody in the front row, as soon as I saw that, then I thought, oh crap, he's not going to be in the main event. They're not doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and The Rock was on Pat McAfee yesterday and talking a little bit about it and saying the right things as far as like, well, I wanted to take a step back, let these guys have the big stage. That's all well and good, but you weren't doing that a couple months ago. And this whole angle of seeing the heel turn was like the foundation was The Rock, and then he kind of walks away from it. And worse than that, that would have flew more, saying that you just want to give them the stage if Travis Scott didn't get involved. But that was really where this match turned for the
Very
worst. Because when you saw Travis come out, the assumption was that The Rock was right behind him, and I think people would have been fine with Travis being involved if it was part of like this click with The Rock. But when we just got Travis, it just made things much worse. I thought he was bad. I thought he took forever to get into the ring, and it slowed down the match. So they're both just kind of standing around waiting for Travis Scott to get into the ring. And this notion of like, well, what everybody's going to want to see is Cody get his receipt. It doesn't work that way. I mean, like the receipt that people wanted to see was Cody legit, like
right,
not give him like a worked cross,
not a worked receipt, right?
Yeah. So anyway, and at the end, it was 60,000 people in the building, and I'm sure many more at home saying that's it, and you never want that, where you're dreading the little I was gonna say Titan Sports or whatever it is on the corner coming up, because you're telling yourself this can't be the end, and that was the feeling, and it was just really anticlimactic.
I have so many thoughts about it. I'm going to start by trying to say something positive, actually, something that I thought while I was watching it. We all know John Cena is, getting older. He is well into middle age now, and he can't work like he used to. And, you know, I don't think everybody assumed that, because I think part of it is because he's been away a long time. He's out of practice. Because I think there are guys of his age who can probably go better than he can go right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I give him credit because what he tried to do is he tried to work in a style that was designed to discourage people from cheering for him and getting behind him. It was not successful, but he tried. And I thought it was very smart. I thought he worked a smart match in a way, because he was doing things that were counterintuitive and sometimes not very exciting, to just try to hopefully make sure that the crowd was on Cody's side. But I think it backfired a little bit. And I think the issue here is that, in a way, they're getting too cute for their own good with this whole angle and the way and I'm fully behind the John Cena heel turn, because they're thinking as well, okay, John can't really go anymore, so we have to work around this. And this is what I think they're thinking, that, part of his persona now, which I'm going to kill pro wrestling and I'm going to do this and that, is sort of like, it reminds me of when Mick Foley was in ECW and he kept putting people inside headlocks to piss off the fans. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So it's like they're saying, well, I'm not going to give you the exciting match you want to see. Screw you. I'm going to be, slow and boring and put on a headlock and like stalk around the ring slowly. But I feel like that is almost like you're almost shooting yourself in the foot, and it's too cute for your own good, because then what you want, it sounds like a great storyline idea, but in the execution, what you wind up with is a boring, unsatisfying match. And that's unfortunate. I also think that, and I'm going to be the grumpy old man here, but I don't know if it's the WrestleMania effect, if it's being in Vegas, if it's the effect of these European crowds bleeding over into America, but
I totally agree.
These crowds are ruining these matches and angles. And look, I'm going to preface this because I get clobbered on Twitter whenever I say this. I'm sure it's a fun live experience. I'm not going to knock that. These people paid money. They could do whatever they want, as people remind me over and over again. I'm sure it's fun. You just yell out random things and do this and that. Have a great time. All I'm saying is the result of the product, watching it as a consumer at home, it damages what they're trying to accomplish. They crapped all over Cody just because it was the cool thing to do, not for any storyline reason. They cheered John Cena, because of nostalgia or whatever. They, to my mind, ruined and I know this is the next night, but they ruined the Becky Lynch heel turn. It's like totally confusing. I mean, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a noise? It's like if somebody turns heel and everybody cheers for it, are they really a heel?
Yeah.
These crowds are just.
So with Dominic also, right? I mean,
yes, that was it.
Yeah.
And again, I know I sound grumpy, but it's so frustrating because there's no reason to be cheering for Dominic Mysterio. It's like he is the purest heel that they have.
The only thing there that I might give them a little bit of a pass is appreciating that this guy's been working really hard and put up a lot with a lot of crap, and seeing him get a title, like,
I know,
you give a pat on the back. But right, I still agree with you. From a storyline perspective, it doesn't make sense, and it hurts the presentation. This is always something that drove me crazy, even from Cena's babyface days. And I've always said that, like, in some ways, the wrestling fans that get it the best are kids, because they're not jaded, right? So they cheer the good guys and they boo the bad guys. And in Cena's babyface run, it was great seeing like how my kids would react to John Cena, because they loved him because he stood for what was good,
Yeah, but now if you watch these crowds, as I do, the people, when they do "Let's Go Cena, Cena sucks," it's the same people saying both things. It's absolutely meaningless.
They think they're so much smarter than everybody else. Like, I get you, and they're hurting the product. Yeah.
And it used to be, the thing is this: people can like I said, they can do whatever they want, and you can't shove people down the fans' throats. They're going to reject things. But it used to be, at least once upon a time, that you could manipulate and persuade a fan base, if to like somebody or to turn around on something and to cheer for something instead of boo, or vice versa. You can get on the mic and cut a promo and turn the crowd against you and that sort of thing. And I feel like the fans now watching, they're almost too smart for their own good, and they're bulletproof to any kind of, not any kind, but they're bulletproof to the kinds of typical manipulations and booking, strategies and techniques that would normally work on fans to get the kind of reactions you want to try to get in a reasonable way. And they've gotten to the point where the fans just really take over the show, and the singing of everybody's songs. And again, I'm ratcheting up the
It's
grumpiness.
become like Rocky Horror music show.
But it takes so long, and they're
Yeah.
singing, and that's the other thing they ruined. Look, the main event of night one, stupendous. I normally am opposed to triple threats. That's how you do a triple threat, like you said. And the angle, beautiful. Oh my God. I was watching that one with people at the house, and we were going nuts. I mean, it was fantastically executed. And then you have the crowd just singing Seth's song and cheering for him, and Paul Heyman cheering for him like they normally would on the way out. And it took something away from that perfectly executed angle. That should have been a cascade of scathing boos and catcall. You know what I mean? For something like
Yeah, back in the day, they would have just like
oh,
piped the sound over it. I remember when Hogan pulled Sid out of the Rumble. Remember that?
yes. And they booed Hogan. Yes.
Yeah, and then they just kind of looped it over, and the costume video released.
They
To clean that up.
cheered when Sid eliminated Hogan. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember too, at Survivor Series a couple of months
right.
before, they cheered when The Undertaker beat Hogan. Okay.
Yeah,
I was watching that pay-per-view. They cheered.
yeah,
And they changed the sound, and they did
right.
what they had to do. Like they were
That's
getting tired of
exactly it.
Hogan by that point.
But
So
yeah,
that
you think
happened.
about all these, you think about the main event night one, like how much more, and it was plenty effective. But yeah, imagine if there was a chorus of boos instead of cheers. How
Because
much
none of it
would have been memorable?
seems to make any sense. That's
Yeah,
the thing. It's like, look what happened. You got Io Sky, who they love. They love her. She's like a sentimental crowd favorite. They're eating out of the palm of her hand. And then who was it that was attacking her? Was it what am I thinking of?
Bianca was getting booed.
No, but there was somebody who was, oh no, I know what it was. No, I know what it was. It was Lyra Valkyria, when she was getting attacked with the Becky Lynch heel turn, and they're chanting like one more time,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm thinking, like, why? And
yeah,
it's just because they don't really care one way or the other. They just want to see crazy stuff. And the one last thing I'll say about that main event is this, and this is another thing I've been harping about, because I tried to really see all sides of this. This is part of the problem with, say, a Travis Scott too. When you get these outside celebrities who, no, not everybody's Logan Paul. You get these outside celebrities who are just not suited to be this heavily involved, and they just crap the bed. And then everybody will go on one side. They'll say, well, Travis Scott is like the top rapper in the world. He's more famous than anybody on the WWE roster. It helps to have him involved. Here's the flaw in that, and not enough people are saying this. Pro wrestling and WWE appeals to and is followed by a wide, diverse range of age groups. Okay. It's not just something that very young people watch. It's not just something that kids watch. People watch it who are, and I'm not saying just small part, like a significant portion of the viewing audience is middle-aged, even older than
yeah.
middle-aged. Significant. It's not like an MTV show. It's just not. And the thing about people like Travis Scott, you can say he's this, he's that, he's the most famous person on earth and all this, only to people who are young. Is that true? And people act like only young people exist in this equation, and
Yeah,
that's not the case. I am telling you. And I see it all the time. I'm sure you two see it on social media. People that are of an older age, I don't know, let's say over 40, a huge amount of those people have no idea who this guy was until he got involved in WrestleMania. And you can hem and haw about, well, look, if you're under 40, if you're in your 20s and 30s, he's the greatest thing ever. He's super huge and hot and big star. when you have half the audience going, who the hell is this clown who is ruining these big angles and matches?
Yeah.
That's not good, no matter how popular he is with the younger fans. It's not good.
Well, that's because of that last part, because he's ruining the angle.
Yes.
Because I imagine to some extent you could have said this about Mr. T or Cyndi Lauper back in the day also.
But could
But
you
the
though?
issue
That's
is
the thing I'm
when
saying though. I think because we have this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have this very segmented culture today, where it's like everybody's in a silo. If you're really young, you don't really know who the old people are that your parents and grandparents
right.
like. If you're old, you don't know who the hell all these young people are. I feel like maybe I'm wrong because I was a kid, but in the '80s, everyone knew who Mr. T was. My grandparents knew who Mr. T was. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Travis
different.
Scott is very famous, and I even heard of the guy, right? Some of it's for the wrong reasons. I don't know if you know the whole controversy with him in a show
I
years
was
ago where
informed of it recently. Yeah.
yeah, and and I think did he date a Kardashian or something? That's how
Who
I
hasn't?
know. But certainly he was a big deal to my kids. But I get using a celebrity like that, even if a lot of the audience doesn't know him, if the goal is to kind of grow the tent. But then they've got to deliver. I think the perfect example is Bad Bunny, who I never heard of when he got involved, and Bad Bunny contributed something to the product. He was really good. He worked hard. He made those shows better, and
He did.
he brought in more fans. Yeah, Travis Scott is sort of like and if you hear Triple H tell it, the guy means well and really enjoys wrestling and all that stuff. And he had his own merchandise section in the store, the superstore, with huge lines. So it definitely caters to a fan, but he is not making those segments better. He's making them worse. I think almost objectively, if you put out a poll, what was the worst thing about that main event, I think the majority of fans or the most responses would be Travis Scott's involvement. It slowed things down. It didn't make sense. It wasn't well done, and it just kind of put a stain on what should have been the biggest match of the year.
And of course, I also thought that they probably could have played that song a few more times. Don't you think? I don't
Yeah,
think that would have been
that's
good.
stuck in my head. Yeah,
Um,
but I mean, like it was linked to the Rock involvement, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, they really shot themselves in the foot
yeah.
building the expectation that the Rock would come out, and then he just doesn't.
Well, I also think that the one thing I didn't mind, and the Travis Scott thing, it shouldn't have been him, but one thing that I didn't have a problem with is it did feel like they were, even though there was still outside interference, it felt like they were pulling back a little bit from the absolute circus atmosphere of, let's say, the last couple of WrestleMania main events, where it's just almost like people coming out and taking a bow like through the match, like
Yeah,
repeatedly, which I think is a lot of fun. But I don't know if you want to do it every single year in every WrestleMania main event. That might be like a bad precedent to set. So, you know what I mean? It almost felt like maybe they were
yes.
saying, okay, let's pull it back just a little bit.
But you do that in matches where you need something more because of the limitations of one of the workers. I mean, I think of like Sting and Triple H 10 years ago, where
Yeah.
NWO comes out, DX comes out.
All
You
right.
needed that because, ironically, Sting wrestled for another 10 years, so maybe you didn't need it as much as I thought you would. But like the bells and whistles, the smoke and mirrors, and now seeing Cena's limitations, maybe you did need some of that. And on Cena, before I forget, it's a real concern going forward. I was interested in seeing him work as a heel, right? And I think, as you were saying, some of that was deliberately kind of trying to make it less exciting. I don't think he did a good job working as a heel, because what I didn't see a lot of was showing ass. I think Hogan, when he turned heel, was
Yes.
really good at this, cowering away, taking a powder
He
outside.
did it at the end, though. He did the whole cowering
A
heel
little bit,
thing at
yeah,
the end.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, he was on the offense much of the match. I mean,
Yeah.
he was. It's too much to say he was dominating the match, but I didn't think he worked as. I didn't think he was doing the work of a heel, and I don't think he's working as a heel. I mean, that's another conversation I wanted to have, and it very much still feels like Cena cosplaying a heel. Like he's had all these ideas in his head for years, and he's trying to execute all of them, but he's not fully bought in. And some of it is kind of like a testament to like this guy just like, you know, not being a bad guy. And I don't know if he's a bad guy, but you know, he was on Pat McAfee the next morning and really trying to sell this heel thing. And at the beginning of the interview, he was sort of like unwavering, you know, heel. These fans betrayed me. I've got to, you know, I don't care what they think. 20 minutes in, he's putting over the company. He's putting over how awesome Logan Paul is and how hard he's working. He's putting over Dominic Mysterio. He's putting over Joe Hendry. He's putting over the fans and how great it is that they come out for this. It's like he can't be a heel, you know,
Well,
and he doesn't believe what he's saying. And it is John Cena imitating what he thinks a heel is, and it's not working.
I think the thing is, I think you're right. I mean, we all know where I stand on the heel turn. The problem is, though, with the build up to WrestleMania, is they, like you said, they didn't seem to know quite what to do with it. It turned into week after week of repetitive promos. There wasn't really much in the way of an angle or a storyline. And I don't know if we've been spoiled by the Bloodline stuff, which was so masterful. It just felt like nothing happened.
Or the same
And the problem is, you know, when you've got weekly TV like this and hours and all this attention on it, like things need to happen to progress it forward. There was no angle. Nothing actually happened from week to week. They would just come out and just talk more, and that was it. There was nothing to it. And yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with that going forward. You know, also, you got to think of the Cody factor. It's like, okay, is this now AEW all over again? Like, they got to be very careful here, because this is what I was afraid of the whole time. Yeah. Like, is it just a freak WrestleMania crowd reaction? But even if it is, that's how things get started. You know, it bleeds over into the other, then the fans think, oh, this is how we're supposed to react. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if they're going to do this, but I think they need to kind of give him a little break for a little while, because
that was my
if they put him right back out there and they crap all over him, he's done. Like, they really need to worry about that. And so I think they need to hold him back and then bring him out for a big moment to ensure that he gets the right reaction that they want him to have.
Yeah, I had the same thought right after the match was over, thinking about what do you do next. And I thought Cody needs to go away for a while. Yeah, he needs to take some time off, you know, sort of what Roman did last year at WrestleMania, bring him back at SummerSlam or later, you know, big surprise, and he'd get the all the cheers. But I do hope at least that this was something of an anomaly, because I was there at SmackDown on Friday, and you know, WrestleMania fans being WrestleMania fans, they were booing him. But I got to give it to Cody in the middle of that last face-off with Cena. He largely won them back, and I think it speaks to just how good the guy is, and he's he really has a great connection with fans. I'm less worried with him than with others, because I think he's that good at what he does that he could get him back. But to be safe, I do think it makes sense to take it, especially if you're not going to get, you know, you got to keep him away from Cena for a while, and I don't think it makes sense to keep him busy with a bunch of other opponents that won't mean he should want Cena when he comes back. But also, you know, you could do the thing, I'm gonna take some time away to assess, blah blah blah, you know, all that stuff, and then bring it back and go after Cena. In the meantime, you know, now we have Cena Orton, which, you know, you could have predicted with the build up to Orton at this show and the next pay-per-view being in his hometown. That made all the sense. But you know, if Cody couldn't get a good match out of Cena, I don't have a lot of high hopes that Randy or much of anybody can. You know,
but isn't that, now that's what I'm talking about. Look at the difference. Look at Randy Orton and look at John Cena. Now, Randy Orton's like a year or two younger than Cena, but they broke in together. They came up the same way. They're similar ages. Randy Orton is like peak. The guy is like superhuman. He looks phenomenal. He works fantastically still. I mean, I wouldn't even say he's lost a step. The guy's unbelievable. but that's what happens when you're doing it all the time,
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, yeah.
Cena kind of just walked away, and then your age and your body catches up with you, and I don't think you could even get it back at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the night one main event. Again, I think the best WWE match of the year so far. Everything I loved in a WWE match, where um, and to me, this is what a great wrestling match is. It is partly athletic, and there's no shortage of athleticism here, especially with Seth Rollins, who might be the best worker in the world. But it was the storytelling throughout, not just the big angle at the end, but I love the tease of the Shield reunion with the powerbomb spot, and Roman just takes out Seth. They did a really good job of interweaving the relationships between the three of them. It felt like a big deal. The three have huge star power. I thought that night one main event went about as well as it could be. I think Seth, who's been doing great work, but needed a little something to get him to that next level, got that now, and I think this is a good position for him. I think Heyman and him work really well. We now have a Braun Breaker alliance, so somebody else in the fold now. I like it all. I think it's all terrific. A little curious what you do with Roman kind of away from the bloodline and away from Heyman just on his own. Looks like they're teasing a union now with Punk, and I don't know if that's maybe the next show is Punk and Roman versus Braun and Seth. But I'm here for all of it. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, and it's a great way to elevate Braun Breaker now. It's like it's the perfect moment to do it. It also pays off. WWE is really good at this sort of thing. I don't know if you remember, but like a while back, where Braun Breaker and Heyman had an interaction where I think it was when Braun first came up from NXT, and him and Heyman had this vignette where Heyman was like putting him over, and you're really going to be something someday, and we might meet again, and this and that. And it's wild. And this is like whenever Breaker came up, which was a while ago now, like a year or two ago or something. So maybe something that they had in mind for a long time. But really well done. I think we are truly, well and truly in the post Bloodline era now. We can all kind of say that at this point. It sort of quietly happened. I hate to say it, but I think in hindsight, it seems like Solo Sikoa was a failure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he was off of the show altogether.
And I think he spelled the end of it, because I think they were thinking for a while we can keep it going with him, and then they quickly realized like this is not really working. He doesn't quite have, not that he's not good, but he's not really at that level, and he can't carry this thing. And I think that's really what happened with it, where, you know what I mean? And now it seems like instead the guy they're going to go for, but on his own sort of thing, is Jacob Fatu. And it's kind of funny in a way where it now seems like Solo Sikoa is Jacob Fatu's flunky instead of the other way around, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You wonder, if Fatu just played that role where the bloodline have stuck around. But yeah, totally agree. A few months back there was some talk of, is WrestleMania Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa?
Yeah,
and Solo was left off of the show.
Right. He was in Jacob Fatu's corner for that match when he won the title.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I do think as soon as they kind of put him in that, you think about SummerSlam, Cody and Solo, it just was meh. I don't know if people even remember that was the main event of SummerSlam, but yeah, Solo, and he's still relatively young in the business, and not necessarily a slight on him, but maybe a little bit more than he was ready for at this moment. And also, he worked as that quiet enforcer in the background, and when the role changed, maybe it exposed some of his inexperience, and again, I think the guy still has a big career ahead of him, but yeah, maybe a little too much for the moment. Jacob Fatu, yeah, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, one of the highlights of the weekend, the guy's just remarkable. I think has a huge upside, and I don't doubt is in that world title picture before long, maybe before the end of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like the thing with him, and I guess this is a big difference with Solo Sikoa, is he's got a lot of experience. He's
Yeah.
not new to this thing.
Right.
He's had like really dominant, impressive runs in other companies. Like he's done stuff.
Yeah.
He's not a homegrown product, which I think sometimes is like a handicap for some of these people. So I mean, he's ready for this. He's like primed and ready for this. He's even been, I mean, MLW is no WWE, of
Mhm.
course, but he's been in a position even of being a top guy in a company,
Yeah.
So, he's good for that role.
Yeah. What just overall, what night did you think was better? Night one or night two?
I have to say night one overall, but I mean, it could just be that incredible main event
Yeah.
that's in my mind. Like I thought, I know this match caught a little flack, and maybe I'm in the minority, but I really liked the Gunther and Jey Uso match to open the show.
I thought it was,
Night one.
again, expectations. It was exactly what I thought would be, minus the submission finisher. I don't know who would have called,
But again, even that, I thought people were like, "What a lackluster finish! We needed the big 1, 2, 3 and the thing." Well, some you can't. I mean, you submission finishes are okay, especially with a guy like Gunther who never submits. I mean, I know he submitted to Ilya Dragunov in NXT, right? But I mean, like
yeah,
that was. I mean, the guy almost never loses, and to lose by submission. I mean, maybe it didn't make a big pop for the live crowd because
that's
it's not.
it. It's
But
something
watching
important
it
that,
on television where you're in there real close and you see the tap out, like we were like, "Oh my god, he tapped." I
yeah.
mean, it was like a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, but it's something about like the rhythm of that kind of match where you'd have 60,000 fans counting along one, two,
Yes.
three, and then the pop. And more, it was like,
I could
oh
see
wait,
that.
did he just tap? Oh, he did, yay! And so
But
it's a little bit of a delayed response.
I thought the match was really solid and a great way to open the show.
Yeah,
So I mean, you had a great, in my opinion anyway, a great opener and an all-time great closer. It makes for
yep,
a great
yeah.
show.
And everything in the middle was fine. I mean, I even thought Jade and Naomi was fine. I thought, again, Jacob and LA Knight had a good match.
Can I say
What?
something about the Jade and Naomi thing?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm going to point this out because I had a lot of high hopes for Jade Cargill in WWE, and I still do. That was Jade Cargill has been in the company for 15 months. That was the first premium live event singles match that she has had in WWE ever,
Hmm.
and I think I don't. I'm thinking that she's not quite working out as to what they wanted her to be because with all these weird kind of like we're going to throw you in a tag team for a year, then you're going to be off TV for half a year. And when she came in, man, I mean, you could tell it was almost like they were wanting to build the whole division
It's
around
the
her.
look. I mean, the most she's got, like, we talked about like Lex Luger a couple weeks ago, and how if you could create a wrestler, you could like carve him out of stone. He would have looked like Lex Luger. For a woman, it might look like Jade Cargill. I mean, she's
Yeah,
just,
but I don't think I think they're realizing now that that's just not going to be what they're going to get out of her.
yeah.
I'm sure I just get the sense that it's one of these things where behind the scenes they're really kind of going, wow, this isn't really what we thought it was going to be. What do we do with her? Kind of a thing.
I thought
Um,
she was fine. I think it's sort of like a Goldberg situation where you
mhm.
got to know what you're dealing with, and there is a Goldberg kind of match, and if you stray that far away from that formula, that's when the limitations are exposed. You got to have a Jade Cargill kind of match,
But
and I think
even
a lot of women
Goldberg,
don't want to do that with her because it means getting squashed essentially.
yeah. But the problem I see with this is because look at how they pushed Goldberg despite his limitations, right? I mean, he was the guy, and despite his limitations, almost in a way like the Ultimate Warrior, who was limited, but he could give you a very exciting match. Like he could do things that would get people pumped up, and so you could work around him much easier. I mean, Goldberg matches would be like the highlight of any show. That's not the
Yeah,
case with Jade Cargill. Really, it's not. It's like the bell rings and it's distressing because after all these time now, it's been years now in two major companies. She's had Daniel Bryan working with her, Bryan Danielson in AEW, and I'm sure plenty of very skilled people in WWE, and she still cannot deliver that. Her matches don't have any kind of life to them. That the only oomph it has is the finish, the big finish and the pin, and that's it. And
yeah.
it's a
Well,
problem.
I think something that I'm critical of, I don't want to say the entire WWE women's division, but ones who are still on the come up. And I think Naomi fit into this for a long, long time, and only in the recent past it's really grown. Is that the ones where they look at a wrestling match as a collection of moves that are meant to impress, and not sort of like a cohesive story being told. And so many of these women is like, I'm going to do this and it's going to look so cool. And then I'm going to do this spot and it's going to look so cool. And nobody's ever seen anything like this before. And, you know where you see that a lot is in the women's Royal Rumble, where you get like a lot of the kind of greener women. And it's just like innovative spot, innovative spot, innovative spot. And then you compare it to like what a Rhea Ripley or, everybody in the triple threat match, where again, they're looking at it more sort of holistically, and it flows a lot better. I think that's one of the issue with Jade, is that you're kind of thinking through it too much. It's not, I don't ride horses, but you hear from people who ride horses that when you ride horses long enough, it just becomes kind of an extension of your body, right? It's like, you don't have to think about it. You put me on a horse and I'm going to be very stiff and thinking about everything I'm doing. And that's where you got to get to, is where it's Ric Flair, right? Where the stories of Ric Flair being drunk on a bench backstage, passed out, and then you put him in the ring and he gives you 5 stars because he doesn't need to think about it that much,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. And it's with her, it's uncomfortable to watch her, because you do get the feeling, like you said, you can just see the wheels turning. Like she's always thinking, what am I supposed to do now? What am I doing next? What do I do now? And a lot of times it feels like she's really just standing around waiting for something to happen. And that's not a good thing. Like I actually, when I did my Gorilla Monsoon book, I talked, one of the things that came up was that, one of the people that he actually did not like as a worker for real was Ivan Putski. And the reason was that all Ivan Putski did was kind of pose and show his muscles. And when the match started, like, he didn't do anything, and you had to like come to him. You had to do everything to him. Like Ken Patera told me that too. Like you had to just do something, otherwise he was just going to stand there. And I feel like that's her. That's what she does a lot of times.
Well, that might be some of the instructions she's getting too, and maybe it is a realization of her limitations, and she just needs to let somebody else take the lead, obviously, and so you could only put her in there with people who are really good. And I think Naomi got a fine match out of her. I mean, I didn't think they stunk up the joint or anything like that. And for what it was, which was whatever 6-7 minutes, I thought it was fine. Speaking of, again, not to exaggerate things, but in terms of letdowns of the week, Logan Paul and AJ Styles, and I bring it up because this is now becoming a pattern with AJ, who is one of the great wrestlers of our generation. I don't think it's even too much to say of all time. I mean, he is a Hall of Fame worthy wrestler, but this is now 3 WrestleManias, at least, maybe more, in the last several years, where he's in, they put him in kind of like that spot of, here's the show stealer, here's the can't miss, you and this other guy who are going to have great chemistry, and it falls flat. And remember, he had the same thing with Edge a few years back,
Nakamura
a few years back, and I don't know what it is. I mean, is it just a bad coincidence, and the crowd was just kind of a little down for it? It's day 2, more than halfway into the show, but I also think that I don't know if it's something about AJ that on those big stages, if he stiffens up or what it is, but now they say in journalism 1-2 trend, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah, it's very noticeable, and it did bring to mind the Nakamura match, because that one especially, what was that, 2016 or 18, something like that. And it's like, you're looking at this match, which is supposedly, especially if you read the Observer, right, AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura at that time, the 2 best workers on the planet. And you're going, okay, this is going to be something. And it's just a match, And I think it's one of those things that speaks to the old adage of, like, in pro wrestling, it can't just be these are 2 great wrestlers having a great match. Like, it just can't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in AEW. God knows they build their whole company around that. And it doesn't work when they try to do it in WWE. I mean, they had, minus the blood, I guess, they had like what you would expect on a big AEW pay-per-view match, like the big match, two guys who can get it done. And in the end, it just doesn't really make a mark or leave an impact or make people care.
Yeah.
Because you need more than that. And I'm not saying every match, I'm not talking about angles. I'm not saying every match needs to have some crazy elaborate angle. I'm even talking about just the match itself. When the bell rings, you have to do more than that. It's so cliche, but you have to tell a story. You have to have psychology. It can't just be 100 miles an hour running at each other. Like, there's got to be, you have to work the crowd. You have to make people
Yeah.
care. And that
Yeah.
didn't happen in this match.
It's interesting.
Robotic.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I, maybe the fact that they keep on putting AJ in these positions is the problem, right? Because you're sort of presenting it to the fans as like, here is our work rate match, and it almost sets it up for failure.
It's artificial.
Yeah. Whereas when I think of like what's been AJ's best match at WrestleMania, it might have been against Shane McMahon. Remember back in 2016 or whatever it was the Orlando WrestleMania. They had a good little match there, and maybe that was expectations,
Yeah, my favorite match of AJ Styles out of his whole WWE run, I think it was a SummerSlam. It was him against Cena. I thought it was
great match,
stupendous, wonderful, and one of the best matches Cena ever had. I mean, that's like what AJ Styles could accomplish. But people cared about that. It was like it had a lot going for it. I mean,
and AJ and Cody in France last year had a fantastic,
also a very good match. Yeah, very good.
Match. Nobody's questioning how great AJ is and how great Logan is, especially for like this early in his career. On paper, this should have worked. It didn't. I don't know how much of that again is just sort of like pacing and bringing the crowd up and down, but that kind of fell flat. In terms of, I was trying to think other highlights. A little thing, but it's worth mentioning. I think you touched on it. Steve Austin slamming into somebody that could have been so, and maybe is so bad, but I mean, like, talking about ticket prices, I don't know what that person paid for that ticket or if they were some kind of VIP or something. But like, oh my gosh, that could have just been a nightmare of all nightmares.
Did you see that Nick Khan ran over to her and was like talking to her? And I'm thinking this woman is at least going to get back the price of her ticket. I mean, come on, at least you got to help her out.
Like, I wonder what the wheeling and dealing is going on right now.
You could tell Austin was checking on her before he even got in the ring, and then he checked on her again when he got out. And I remember, like, just the fact that it was still going on after he got out of the ring got me thinking, like, oh man, this is not good. And you could tell there were people standing around it that just had these looks on their faces like, not good, not good. It reminded me of, do you remember the story about how when they did the angle with Steamboat and the ring bell crushing his throat, that when they were stretchering him out and he's like spasming on the stretcher and kicking and flailing, that I think he kicked a woman in the face, and like,
I never heard of this.
Yeah, he kicked somebody in the face, and she wound up suing and getting like a nice settlement out of it from that. Yeah, and you have to wonder, because I saw some reports afterwards saying that the woman was genuinely pissed off, like not happy. It was not good at all. Not good.
Yeah. Kind of the unintended WrestleMania moment. A couple other matches before we went. Tiffany and Charlotte, again, a lot of expectations for this because of the real life. But I think it was fine. I think everybody was looking for, where those moments of like real heat. And I do think that there were, whether it was intended or unintended, they did give us some exchanges that felt a little more real than what else was on the show.
Well, did you see Tiffany's face at the end of it?
Yeah,
I mean, man.
Well, do you think that was calculated? I mean, was a conversation had? Like, look, they're going to expect us to lay into each other a little more. So
it's very possible. It's very possible. Like in wrestling, you never know. Like I'm still not 100% convinced that all the stuff that they were saying was not pre-agreed upon stuff. I mean, it probably wasn't, but you never know in wrestling. And I do think, from watching it, that they were laying it in, and whether that was, I mean, you have to think with a couple of weeks to plan from when that promo happened, they could have said, look, let's really lean into this and really go at it in there. because you could tell from her face. I mean, she was banged up, and I don't know. I don't think she lost a tooth, but she's something. It looked like her tooth was knocked loose or something
Yeah.
happened. I don't know if she wound up getting a cap on it because she looked fine, a day or two later, but her lip was swollen. I mean, whether planned or not, they definitely were working a little stiffer than usual in there.
Yeah, yeah, and I would think it's likely planned. I heard Stevie Richards talking about this, I think, and it makes sense. And he talked about like when you're in the ring with someone who you don't like, if anything, you're doubly careful.
Hmm.
So it's less likely that'll happen
Interesting.
because everybody's looking for it, and you want to make it clear that we're professionals. So
Yeah. No,
so if
that's a great point.
yeah, so if there was some physicality, I imagine it likely was planned ahead of time. What else was there? The return of Becky Lynch, not much to it. Turns heel the next night. I think everybody, or a lot of people's thoughts here were with Bailey, who goes from having the show stealer last year to being left off the show.
And this has
altogether
happened to
this
her
year.
before, the year where she was like hosting it. Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah, right. The four-way we touched on it, the IC four-way with Dominic winning. I thought that was really good. Happy to see Dominic get it. I think it opens up a lot of storyline opportunities. It gets the belt off of Braun Breaker, so you could elevate him into the main event scene. So I thought this all worked out really well, and it was one of the better matches of the two night.
oh yeah, absolutely. No, it really went well. And I kept trying to, I should just look it up, but I kept trying to remember if Rey Mysterio had ever been Intercontinental Champion because I thought it would have been
He was.
interesting.
I saw somebody post a list of all the father and son Intercontinental champions, and he was one. Rikishi and Jay.
Oh yeah.
And Kurt Hennig and Michael McGillicuddy.
Oh
Remember?
man, he was Intercontinental
I
Champion. I don't
guess
even
so.
remember that.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No,
Uh,
I mean, and it's a great thing, and it was interesting because it shows more of that Judgment Day dissension because the guy he pinned in the match was Finn Balor, his
yeah.
own partner.
So you protect Braun, obviously.
Right.
So that made sense. Oh, Randy Orton, what did you think of the Joe Hendry reveal? I've got mixed feelings of it. I mean, you know, you could, as certainly Triple H and WWE is going to look at it. It's like we're doing you this huge favor, putting your the TNA champion on WrestleMania and getting to work with one of our greats. On the other hand, it's 3 minutes long, and Randy Orton dispatches of your world champion. It was it a squash? This was a whole debate online, and Joe Hendry, I guess, kind of like made the case this was no squash. It was a 3-minute match where he took 2 RKOs and got.
And he's the TNA World Champion.
Yeah.
The
So
top guy in the company. Yeah, it was a mixed bag. Yeah, I mean, I'm not blind to the fact that okay, how are you burying a guy that you put in a match at WrestleMania when he doesn't even work in the company? Okay,
right.
I can get that. But let's not fool ourselves here and say that there have not been people in the last 41 years who wrestled at WrestleMania and were buried at WrestleMania. I
Right.
mean, it happens. You know what I mean? Just because you're on the card doesn't mean you're not getting buried. But in hindsight, knowing what we know now about Orton and Cena, you could see why Orton had to be very strong and look
Yes.
really good there and couldn't lose. However, if it wasn't for that, that would have been a great match to really get someone else over. Because I was thinking another thing you could have done was that could have been the Rusev moment. And to have
That's what I
Rusev
expected.
come out and not only come out, but steamroll Randy Orton and beat him. I mean, that would have really launched him as I'm back. I don't know. The thing with Joe Hendry is like, if you have him win that, what's the end game of that? Because he doesn't even work for your company and you're having him beat one of your top guys. I mean, you could do it if you had some kind of a big plan for him. Like, let's say they were planning to do not an invasion, but some type of an invasion-like thing where the TNA World Champion is now on WWE television issuing challenges and saying, I'm a world champion too, and that sort of thing, and I want to face your champions. Then yeah, he should have beaten Randy Orton, but not if it's just some one-off thing to have a cool WrestleMania moment. Then there's no point in doing that.
If you're TNA, are you happy with this? I mean, your guy gets to work at WrestleMania. It's great exposure for you. So I bet that they are. I mean,
They probably are.
yeah, yeah,
Especially with
even
Scott D'Amore gone, they probably are. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, the other one that came to mind, and I don't know what the logistics of this would have been, but I saw him at WrestleCon, so it made me think, would have been Matt Riddle, right? I mean, that would have been
Wow.
tying a
Yeah.
bow on that would have been and the kind of guy that you could beat easily and just have for the one off. But yeah, what else am I missing? Um, did you have any thoughts on the women's tag team championship match? I mean, it was, you know, not
Well,
a lot to it. Or Becky turning heel. Thoughts on Becky turning heel?
Well, you heard what I said before. I think that it really did not come off well, her heel turn. I
Yeah.
thought she didn't execute it right, and I thought the crowd ruined it. In fact, some of these people, I think they're just so used to maybe not being heels that they don't know how to do it. But when the crowd is chanting one more time and you're the heel, you don't do it one more time.
Yeah.
You
Right.
just leave. You leave and you piss everybody off. And that's what you're supposed to do. It didn't come off well. However, I will say, I didn't get all the people complaining, well, what was the point of doing the title change if they're just going to lose it back the next day? Well, the point was it gives Becky a reason to snap. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the point.
And it created a WrestleMania moment.
And right, it created a big moment at WrestleMania, and then the next day, it gave her a reason to turn and snap because I can't believe it. We just won these damn things yesterday, and you blew it. My comeback is ruined, and I'm gonna, beat the crap out of you. That's why they did
Yeah.
it. It made sense. It's just it didn't come off right. That's all.
Yeah. And I'm not I'm on the fence about Becky as a heel. We had her as a heel a couple of years ago. It was a mixed bag. I get wanting some freshening up. Do we get the same heel act that we had a couple of years ago? I don't think so. So it's going to be a different twist on it. So I'm not sure. I suppose they could use some good women heels in the company. So willing to give it a chance. There's kind of a storyline here with El Grande Americano and Rey Fenix, Rey Mysterio being injured and taken off the show. My takeaway is, and I thought this watching on Friday night, being in the building, I can't believe they're having these guys work the night before WrestleMania. I mean, I think there should be a hard and fast rule of you get anybody who's got a match this weekend should not be working Friday night or even the week before that. I mean, you got to protect those cards.
Yeah, and that's what they used to do. I mean, if you look, especially at some of the early manias, they didn't even book shows in the week leading up to it, which was a big deal back then because they were running almost every day. And sometimes they wouldn't even book shows the week after Mania just to give everybody kind of a breather.
Yeah.
I mean, you can question the fact of like, do you beat Rey Fenix
I
at
did. I mean, I heard some pieces about
WrestleMania?
it. I thought it's fine. One of
Yeah.
it was a cheap win with the steel plate in his head. I don't think Rey Fenix is hurt all that much. I think it's good he got on the show. I mean, in the end, it might have been a blessing in disguise for him that he got to be featured on WrestleMania. So, you heard people say it should have been Dragon Lee's spot. Come on, Dragon Lee's not even on TV. I mean, to put this guy at WrestleMania would have been preposterous. When's the last time he's worked any PLE?
I thought it would have been a cool time to bring the Lucha Brothers together, and I guess they chose not to do that. And they're gonna do it at some point, but
yeah. Well, but Penta is so hot. I mean, I got to say, like, being there that week and seeing all the people with the Penta cosplay at the World and all that. The guy's really over.
And here's a great example of what we're talking about. Of the two of them in the ring, I think Rey Fenix is definitely the superior one. But they're both great. They both have charisma. They both have the it factor. But Penta has more of it. He just has more of it.
And even more counterintuitive, Rey speaks better English, right?
Yes.
Penta doesn't have a lot of English. I know if it's it is the swagger, it is the cero miedo. People love that. It's the way he walks into the ring. It's all of it. It really connects.
I could tell even, I go by the 8-year-old reaction. I sit with my son, and when Penta comes out, he's just like enthralled, just mesmerized.
Yeah, same here. My kids never really heard of Penta before this weekend, and by the end of the weekend, they were Penta fans because how do you not? I mean, he's cool,
And I have to say, like I will say it, and I know, I'm probably not in the majority, but with El Grande Americano, I am just a sucker for any time they do that
Same.
corny, dumb gimmick where it's some guy in a mask and it's
Yeah,
obviously the guy and nobody can prove
I
it.
get
And
a kick out of it too.
I
Yeah,
love it. I love the metal plate and the mask thing. It's just so simple.
like
I love it.
Elias and Elijah.
Yes.
Ezekiel, Elias and Ezekiel a few years ago. It's stupid, but it's just sort of funny.
Well,
I
Kevin Owen is what made that, just the
yeah,
frustration of it. Mr. America. I mean, I know Hogan is
yes.
kryptonite right now, but Mr.
The
America, I was
machines.
eating that up. The
Do you remember
machines, right?
the machines
Yeah.
way back
Bobby Heenan losing his mind. That's Andre the Giant. It's like,
then?
come on, it's obviously Andre the
Yeah.
Giant.
But that was one of my takeaways is Chad Gable has done so much with every second of TV time he's gotten over the last few years. He really is. They've got something special in that guy. Last thing, so just moving ahead, the reset. Jey Uso as the world champion, one of the world champions, Cena as the other. How do you see the next few months, playing out? We saw a Sami Zayn and Jey in the ring. Is that a tease of some, what would you do with Jey next?
Well, with
Drew
Jey,
McIntyre, maybe.
yeah, I don't know. It does feel pretty wide open right now. Like it's clear at the moment that he doesn't really have a program right now
Yeah.
at this precise moment. I don't know if you have. I think Gunther needs to move on because he's one of those guys where,
McAfee, I guess, and I think it's actually really intriguing.
yeah, because Gunther can't lose too much. That's part of his mystique.
Yeah.
So if you have him continuing to go after Jey, he's going to lose again, unless they're going to just put it right back on him. So it's interesting for Gunther not to make this about him because now he finds himself in a position where he's without a title, which he very rarely is. And it doesn't look like he's going to be getting another one anytime soon. And so it's sort of like the first time he's going to just be out there, as a character, without being a champion. But for Jey, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I guess I will say this, and it's from watching too much wrestling, but when Jimmy came out to congratulate him, I was like, oh man, this is a turn.
I don't think you could go to that. Well, I think you could do the match, without a turn, and I kind of like to watch that more. Because I think they acknowledge that they didn't deliver on the WrestleMania match last year, so I wouldn't mind seeing without any turns, Jimmy saying, Jey offering the shot to him, or Jimmy offering the shot to him, and kind of have an intense, heated match between two brothers, but with respect. And I think it'd be interesting.
You wouldn't do the turn during the match in that situation because
I
that could work.
You can have it heat up, and maybe there's some moments where it gets a little, more personal than they anticipated.
Can't you just hear Michael Cole like, "That's your brother, Jimmy. That's your brother."
Yeah, but it's a weird spot where even after having the title, you still feel like Jey needs something to put him over, right? I mean, because if he goes and he works, and we've seen this so many times, especially when you have two world champions, if he's working in the middle of the card with some mid card, or ostensibly for a world title, that's not going to do a lot to elevate him, right? So it's sort of like he still needs that opponent to help elevate him, to sort of like convince fans that, like, no, he really is a main event guy, And I'm not positive, but I don't know if it was you or somebody brought up Roman Reigns. I mean, like, that would be, and that seems to be a little bit far away, but I think that would be really something.
I do too. I did say that the last time. It's an interesting idea from a storyline standpoint because now it's almost like he's fulfilled what Roman was always saying he was going to do. He's the main event. He's the world champion. I mean, splitting hairs, it's not the same world title, whatever, but he's the world champion. And now Roman Reigns is not. And you can have a situation where now, oh my God, now I am chasing you. And think about what we were doing 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the thing is, once the rubber hits the road on that, it's like, well, how is Roman not going over in that scenario? And then what have you really accomplished? And now you're just back to Roman Reigns as a world champion. I mean, maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's the road to get Roman Reigns back to being a world champion.
Yeah.
While not getting mixed up with the Cody and Cena stuff.
Yeah.
Could be. It could be that.
Sure. If it is Sammy, if they turn Sammy, I think that's fine. I mean, I think Sammy's a good heel, and would give Jay some really good matches. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. As for Cena, again, I got some concern about the quality of his matches. I'm guessing we're only getting a handful of them between now and the end of the year. He's got a lot of appearances, but as he was discussing on Raw, they're not all matches. So,
Right.
I'm guessing he's got maybe half dozen matches left. You would think that there are going to be some big ones along the way. Punk, do they do Roman? Do they? I'm not sure, but I don't have a ton of super high hopes about the quality of them. I mean, given what Cena looked like on Sunday night.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get what I was saying we're gonna get, which is the big reign of terror, right? John Cena, the world title in the clutches of John Cena, doing his rants and everything. It's almost like some weird mirror image of John Moxley in AEW. It's like the idea of the title being held hostage by somebody that wants to destroy wrestling. I mean, it's interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what are they doing here? But then when it comes time to actually have him work, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation they find themselves in, where it's a situation where I guess they're hoping that the overarching storyline carries the whole thing and people can forgive the fact that this is not 2015 John Cena or
Yeah.
2005 John Cena. You can carry it with a Randy Orton because of their history and because of the fact that he's so good, and whoever else that you want Cena to beat on the way to, I guess, eventually losing it back to Cody, if that's still even the plan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Punk is a big one. I could see SummerSlam
Yes.
them doing a Punk and revisiting that story. And Punk is a guy who could lose to Cena, and wouldn't really be hurt by it. Anyway, overall, for all the nitpicking, WrestleMania is always a blast. WWE does, and this is not hyperbole. I don't think anybody touches live production like WWE.
Right.
Not the Super Bowl, not the Oscars. I mean, you walk into the building and it just takes your breath away. It just looks incredible. It really is. Even a bad WrestleMania is such a fun experience because it's so huge. And this wasn't a bad WrestleMania. It wasn't a great WrestleMania. It again, maybe it ends up in that B territory. I think the last few have been better, but it wasn't a dog like WrestleMania 27 or a few others. So overall, I think a fine, if maybe a little bit of a letdown of a show.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting with the parallels of WrestleMania 9, the
Yeah.
last in Las Vegas, and how they did the documentary and everything. And it was almost like this weird prophecy where you had I'm not saying it was
It wasn't that bad.
it wasn't in the category of WrestleMania
Yeah.
9, but you have WrestleMania back in Vegas where the spectacle and everything is beautiful, the presentation is fantastic. The show itself, while not bad, is average at best.
Yeah, and again, it's all about the main events. I half wonder if they flipped them and they closed night 2 with the night. I mean, you really couldn't because you didn't have the title on the line. But if WrestleMania was a one-day show and Saturday was WrestleMania, I think it was a terrific WrestleMania. You'd wonder why so many stars were left off of it, but that was a great show. I think night 2 brought it down more than it lifted it up. But we didn't talk much about it, but that women's triple threat match was fantastic. I mean,
yes,
excellent match.
It was.
In terms of the reason I wouldn't have it over the night 1 triple threat is like we talked about everything else that goes into making wrestling special. The storyline wasn't as much there. It was in an opening match. The reality is, especially with an Io Sky, the star power is not there as much as Seth Reigns and Punk. But in the ring, that's about as good a match as you're going to get from WWE. Really, really, really good. All right. Brian, anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, boy, I don't really. Well, my book, I'll mention it, Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. I should be able to unveil a cover for the book very soon. I've
Great.
started to get the manuscript out, or the PDF of the book out to some select people to read it and give some of those advanced blurbs that you like to have. So there are some people who now have their hands on the book and are reading it. So hopefully they like it. And again, the publication date is September 30th, but I expect it to start trickling out over the summer. And I hesitate to say this, I will say it though, but pre-ordering for the book is open now. You can pre-order it on Amazon. And the thing is, the reason I'm not pushing the hell out of it, although I just mentioned it now, is when I did it with the Chic book, it crashed Amazon. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I think that they probably ordered a very small amount of books.
Yeah.
And what happened is the book was sold out on Amazon before it even went on sale. And there were a lot of people that were rightfully pissed off because they pre-ordered and they still didn't get it and they had to still wait.
Is that a good thing in the long run, though?
It helped me sell a lot of books out of my garage. That's for sure. Because I was like, hey, I have the book. You want it? But, I don't know. I don't want people to be angry about it, So I'm sure there'll be a really decent pre-order demand, and I'll probably start really pushing it hard by June, I guess. But yes, pre-order is available on Amazon. Irresistible Force.
Great. Looking forward to it. All right, that's it for us. Thanks so much. Been another fun WrestleMania cycle here. We'll do it again a year from now, and we'll be back soon.